In India, in particular, we have been very active over the course of the last almost 10 years of investment. We began our evaluation, I guess, of the market on the technology side here in India with indirect investments through venture funds, and over the last couple of years have made almost $100 million worth of direct investments into startups and the young talent that resides here in India in almost a dozen investments. So a very active effort, a very successful one, and one that we continue to want to invest in as we move forward. Almost a dozen, directly. And we have a number of investments that we have made through venture funds. And so we were one of the first investors into the Indian venture market through the SoftBank Asia Infrastructure Fund many years ago. And that fund itself, by the way, has invested in things like SIFI, into the stock exchange, right? And so a number of enabling capabilities and marquee names in the domestic market. We've also invested in companies like Nimbus, where the ability for new media and content to be driven over the IP network has been a really important part of our learning as we built out vision around technologies like Videoscape, which is our transition into an IP-enabled video world for service providers. So there are a number of really interesting things that we've done. And we've also, of late, been focused increasingly on solutions that help us drive skills development here in India. I know it's a top topic for both the business community as well as for the government, in an area we believe that there's an awful lot of growth, and so you're going to see us very active in investments in that area. Investments help us see ahead of the market before things really take off and become accelerated. So as an example of that, we were early investors in areas like voice, and then we ended up being much more active in acquiring companies in the voice space 10 years ago. Here in India, what it's meant has been the ability for us to build not only knowledge of disruptions that are occurring, but also build out an ecosystem. And what I mean by that is that very many times the ability for us to understand whether it's local needs or complementary capabilities from a services perspective that tie to our technology, that understanding that from the inside out by investing is a great advantage for a company like Cisco. The common thread really is entering new markets, bolstering our strength in those markets, and continuing to look for new disruptions. And that's the reason why we're here in India in particular. We believe that there are significant changes and shifts, and the build out of talent, of an environment, an ecosystem of entrepreneurs and management teams that have the ability not only to be relevant in the Indian market, but are beginning to affect not just the emerging markets broadly, but also the developed markets where much of this talent is beginning to drive a different way of doing business. When I say that we're going to be active and aggressive, what I mean is that when you track us over the course of the next 12 to 18 months, what you will see is a series of investments that we will clearly make across all the areas that I talked about. You will see innovative go-to-market kinds of partnerships that are going to be very important for us to support from an investment point of view. And I'm pretty certain, given the history here, that you will see a number of acquisitions that we do that have significant India components associated with them, whether they're based here in India or someplace else. Is there going to be a killer app? Is there going to be a killer solution? I think absolutely yes, there's going to be. When that's going to be, I can't tell you, but I do think the raw materials for that to happen here do exist. And I think when you look at things like healthcare and telemedicine and many of these, I think, innovations that are becoming prevalent on the world stage, beyond just solving the challenge of what's here in India using cost arbitrage, I think you're beginning to see the ability to influence business models at the macro level for certain verticals. And is that a killer app? Well, for certain industries it actually is. But I do think the foundation for innovative cutting-edge technology exists here, and that will definitely yield use cases that are going to be adopted en masse. So we've gone from a model where We looked at India as a place where disruption was happening. We covered it opportunistically in some ways, to now a model where India represents for us a leadership hub for the entirety of the region from a corporate development perspective. And it is also a place at the same time where Cisco has chosen to put the second headquarters globally, right, in our CGO center in Bangalore. So it's a place where we're going to be very, very tied to for a long time.